Hello and welcome to Stories from the View, a podcast from the Pleasant View Senior Center in East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. On this podcast, we invite East Longmeadow residents to tell us their stories about their lives and events. And today's guest is Carl Ohlin, living in East Longmeadow for almost 40 years. He is well known in the community, and he's going to talk about the parade and all kinds of things about his life. Your host is Mary Genowan Kaplan, and I'm Eric, and here is Mary.
Thank you, Eric. Good morning, and good morning, Carl.
Good morning to you, too.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's you got me on edge, wondering what we're going to do, but we're okay.
We are all waiting with bated breath. That's great. You tell me it started in 1974 when you came to East Longmeadow. How did that happen?
Well, I got married in 1973, and my wife drove by a house where I presently live, and we looked at it, and we got back to the person, and we moved. We had been living in an apartment over in Forest Park section of the area of Springfield where I grew up, and she spotted it, and we've lived there ever since. And it's been a lot of changes, but it's just a nice town to move to. I grew up in Springfield on Locust Street in a group of apartment blocks. And moving to East Longmeadow was like moving to Montana when I came out here. It was so different. But we settled there, and I've stayed there right along. So it's a great place, and I've enjoyed being here very much.
Well, it's serendipitous that your wife happened to drive by, and we are so fortunate that you resided in East Longmeadow. So tell us, when you started living here, what were your experiences being young marrieds?
Well, that was a start of a nice, long lifetime adventure. Cindy passed away 8 years ago.
Oh, so sorry.
Yeah, but we had all of our 3 daughters born here. It was a much quieter environment with things that have changed presently. A lot more traffic, I've noticed, but still, it's got a country-like atmosphere. And for growing up in the city, which I loved and found to be full of nice adventures and a lot of group friends, you still started appreciating what was going on in East Longmeadow. And as the years went on, you'd get to know some people through different associations. And I was asked if I'd like to be a member of, first it was the Lions Club. And I've been a member in the Lions Club since 1984. So
a wonderful active group in our town.
Oh yeah, it's diminished with like a lot of the groups that we have. It's hard to get people and so on because our lives have now been just so interrupted with so many activities that are going on. But it's a basis of a good community environment, like the other social and civic organizations are too. And then I proceeded along to, from the Lions Club, it led into interest in the parade. And back then, the parade had like 3 different sponsors, and the Lions Clubs were one. And basically, there were 2 gentlemen, Joe Scanlon and Marshall Hanson, and they had been resurrecting the parade and so on.
The 4th of July parade.
Oh, yeah, the 4th. And,
the parade. That's in East Longmeadow, you just have to say that.
Yeah, the parade. But anyway, I got involved with them, and part of that was that if you worked with them 1 year, you then became a member of the committee, and I've been member of the 4th of July Parade Committee since 1985, I think, 84, as I said. and it's grown. And I'm still a member of the Lions. I don't get to as many meetings as I have, but I have uh, been very involved with the parade. As my daughter got a little older, I did some coaching with the her team, and all three of my daughters played sports at high school, and I was familiar with it. So I just found that closeness of a community, not that Springfield wasn't close, because you had little clusters of sections of the city, and East Long Meadow was just that was your cluster, and you get to know people and get involved, and when committees would come up, I would be very pleased to join them. And Cindy was a very understanding person and wife, because I was out a lot with meetings. But I was in education for 35 years as well, but I was lucky enough to get home and get to see a lot of my daughter's games and so on. But I just have found that East Long Meadow is a place I'm very happy to stay with. I haven't ever decided to leave the community, but a lot of changes, and so you see different situations in the community, and I always tell a story of people, and I say, you think it's busy around here and different stuff. There was a time when in the Rotary, there were no stop signs.
Right.
And they would come down,
right.
I'd come down Summers Road, and when you're coming down and there's a hill, you would go right through. I'm surprised there weren't more accidents and, issues, but that was a challenge, which it still is.
They used to call it shoot the rotary.
That's
Really?
Yeah, is what the young people called it. Yep, I shot the rotary today. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Not good.
I love that. So the Rotary is now safer. Who would have thought? I love it.
Except if you go counterclockwise, which some people have done.
Some people
Yes.
saw that the other day. Yes.
Yes, my husband, I think 2 weekends ago, was astonished.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
it
don't
is.
expect oncoming traffic.
But it's the center of all activities too, and that's part of the changes that you see. And but I just found living here in East Long Meadow was just an enjoyable start to my life in a different community.
Absolutely. So tell us how the parade was. And now, where is the parade?
Well, I had relatives in Manchester, Connecticut, and we would go down to Manchester, and a lot of times it was for the 4th of July, and we would be slowed down coming through East Long Meadow, because that was back in the 60s, and it almost was disbanded, but like I mentioned, Marshall and Joe, they resurrected it, and it has become something that really has expanded, and it's just a wonderful part of our community that families come back to, and they can say, I remember walking in it, I remember watching it, now I'm bringing my family back, and we go every year. Of course, I've been in it for all these years too, and there's quite a bit of planning to get this to work. And we used to start the parade over at Birchland, and then we got kind of growing, and it was hard to put all of the components together over there. We were on different streets, and we had one parade member who said we should reverse it, and instead of starting at Birchland and ending at the high school, start at the high school and you can disperse at Birchland. And that was a good move, because we could put a lot more vehicles and marchers in the high school, and we still do use other places. Lennox allows us to use their parking lots. We have shuttle buses. So it has grown now, and it's just become something that it's an enjoyable event too.
Were you throwing candy in 1970, in whatever year you started with the parade? Is that a long-standing tradition,
Wow.
the candy throwing from the parade?
It had been, and we actually don't want to have that happen.
Right,
And the serious nature of it. And it's a nice, fun thing, but with sometimes people are waving to people who are sitting and they're driving, and we've had a couple of close calls, and we would allow people to walk alongside now, and if they wanted just to hand it
Distribute, yes.
that's the term for it. But it's I think other parades in the area are doing the same thing, but it's just part of it, and they were good about it. Sometimes they would forget, and you'd have to remind them and say, look, that can't be done, and oh, okay. So it is part of it too. We're getting a lot of, sometimes people have squirt guns, and they'll squirt from the vehicles, and then, but on a hot day, it feels
I was going to say,
pretty good.
having walked in the parade, the spectators could have squirted me. I think that would be just fine.
Yeah, it's not it's 2.3 miles. And it can get pretty challenging on warm days,
Yeah.
So, and it's funny, I think since I've been on the committee, we've only had a cancellation, I believe, one day.
Right.
And that, and another time we had to postpone it because back then a lot of the stores weren't open on Sundays. They were closed. And one year we had to postpone the parade on a Saturday. And the next day, we had sent out notices that we're going to have it the next day, and we only lost three participants. And
Wow.
So we were lucky. But now we can't do that. We have to decide because we have musical groups that come from different areas. But it's just it's really a great thing to see the families and the cheers, and people just love doing something. Certainly did come in handy, and getting back going. We didn't have one with I believe one of the pandemic years.
Yeah, 2020.
Yeah, and for obvious reasons. But we're back to it, and we're in the process of getting it ready again this year.
And maybe we appreciate being able to do that now since the pandemic, that it's just so special to see people and share time with family and friends and really feel that in-person community.
Yeah, it is. And after the parade, you're driving around and picking up, signs. And I love to see the homes with the picnics that they're having,
Yeah.
and big crowds in the front yard and back. And
Yeah.
so it draws people together, and that really is the whole purpose of a community. And then there are a lot of other events that have occurred and go on in town. We were talking before about the upgrading here of the senior center, and that provides a lot of needed services and activities, and something that is good and well used. And then there's other people in town that have civic groups and organizations, and they all do things during the course of the year, which is nice, and it's in our community. Excuse me.
No, you're absolutely right. There are some wonderful, wonderful things happening
Yes.
in our town. So what other changes have we seen over the years?
Have you seen?
What else strikes you?
Well, as I said, I moved here from Springfield, and I grew up in Springfield, and I think that the things that I saw growing up there was we had our little sections, and it was always, a great thing to know where you were, and you'd go downtown, and there were activities that they had. Monday and Thursday night, you'd be driving down Main Street, and none of the malls or none of the regional areas had developed then. So when I came here, whatever happened mainly in the community. You had little markets, you had stores, and things change. You miss a lot of them, but it still provides us with many activities for families and for children and so on. But it is more congested, and it's one of the things that isn't just with East Long Meadow. Wherever you go, the traffic, I think, has just increased so much, and we have to be careful of it. But you can still find your little peace of calm and quiet in your house and your yard and so on.
Still has that Montana feel?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, no, I know. We just would, when I lived in Springfield, coming up to East Long Meadow, there was an ice cream stand down near where Friendly's is, and it was the Whips ice cream, I think, and we used to call shooting up to the Whips, and that was like, wow, what a distance, 4 or 5 miles from downtown Springfield. But it still has that trait of the town, and you know we're lucky. There's still farms, and you know you can go to produce stands, and that's a good aspect that I think is there too. And as I said, many activities that are ongoing with our town.
And you've had a hand in a whole bunch of them and your community involvement over the years, and you've observed others.
Well, you know, those are enjoyable parts, and you get to being where you live, and you get involved, and you can go to meetings as much as you can or can't, and they're just wonderful people who are keeping this going, and it's a challenge with our lifestyles that have changed now compared to a bit of a serenity type style when we were back in those days, but. Just seeing the groups that could put on the events, and like I said, there would be church cookouts. I know there's a night out in East Long Meadow at the high school, and they get all the civic groups that have little booths and little things, and the Rotary does a lot for the town, and the ITAM and the veterans and the parade committee. Historical Society and the Senior Center here, I think, is a component of that, because people still want to be able to be involved with something, and they have the ability here. I've been down to watch some movies, and I really enjoyed doing that here. And you come to different events, and always stop for a car wash when the kids are washing.
Absolutely.
You have to.
Yeah.
Those are just a lot of the changes that I've seen, but they're progress, and you get used to it, and it's still a great place to live.
And I think you're right. 85% of it is the people.
It is.
We are very fortunate. There are good people in this community who are friendly and happy to help and want to do good things for our town.
Yeah, they are, and even with lives as busy as they are, you get people who volunteer to do things with group clubs and so on. I have 4 grandchildren, and 3 of them play softball, and you get the dedicated coaches, and I did that for, like I said, a year for my oldest daughter. Then I got involved with other activities, but it was always a good thing, and it still goes on now. And we get a lot of crowds at the games and so on. I'm running here and there to go to as many of the games as I can go to. So it's part of what you enjoy, because it's great to be. I'm very fortunate to still have, 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren and their husbands here in East Long Meadow, and my other daughter is out in Boise, and she comes back every once in a while, and we get together, and they talk all the time about growing up and friends, and that's one of the things that's nice, because they're all adults now, and my daughters, and they get together with people that they grew up with here and were in high school. There's just that, I guess it's a continuity and a draw on where we all are now compared to going back and what roots were started there. But I guess that's the thing that I like the most about being here too.
And you get to continue with the grandkids' softball games.
Oh my
and
God! Yeah,
continuing to be a support for them and to see them.
Right.
That's just too much fun.
It is, yeah, and they like having you there, and I feel bad if I can't make one, but I've had a pretty busy schedule, and You know, I think a week ago I had 5 nights, but they're like 6 o'clock games.
Wow.
Yeah, but you go, and luckily, well, most of them are home, but some of them are on the road. But I enjoy doing it, and I think it's good for all the kids too to get parents there. And like I said, I see a lot of support for it too.
And people are busy, but it's wonderful. They're still making time for their children and to show support and get together. It takes us away from our devices.
It does.
So we do appreciate those who are on their device listening to our podcast right now.
Absolutely. Well, it's good you're doing this too, and it provides the community with an insight to some of the people here.
So tell us one, I don't want to say what was your best volunteer experience, but tell us one volunteer story from the many, and it's hard, I know, because it's like you've got a buffet of a lifetime of
Yeah.
service.
Well, I think after the years of being involved with a couple of the groups that I mentioned, I would say probably the parade is in high standing, as the other ones are and still are, and thank goodness we have it. But we had to we got acquainted with the parade activities through going to the meetings the first year. Through the Lions Club, I went to the meeting.
So it was a
Then-
good mentorship as a new committee member.
Absolutely. So then the next year was asked to be a full-time member of the parade committee. And that started, as I said, and over the years, was seeing the leadership of Joe Scanlon and Marshall Hanson. One year they were going to kind of back off and so on, and I was asked if I would like to be a member, and be the chairman, and I said yes, and that kind of kept me involved with it. But it was something that takes a lot of time, and it gets hectic, but it's well worth it. So I think just seeing the parade, watching the people, as I've mentioned, the enjoyment they have, and even the participants, they love it here because the community is such a support of it, and they cheer, they follow the rules, they have a good time, and I think that's probably been the thing that I'm still actively involved quite a bit in, and do what I can with the other groups. But there are community events that I think luckily we need from different sources, and I'm not by any means trying to take away from involvement in the other ones, that they're groups that I have really enjoyed. But probably the parade is the thing that is really embedded in me.
How many I don't want to make this a pop quiz, but do we know how many contingents make up this really long parade?
Well, we have 4 or 5 units. We have a military unit. We get veterans and so on, and then we have 4 units of marchers. We moved to 3 last year. We may expand it to 4, and we meet at the high school, and we usually have close to 180 something participants, and that includes bands, usually about 6 or 7 bands and so on. They're getting tugged at by communities too, and a lot of them have them on the 4th, like we have. So, but we have probably, I'm trying to think, the whole parking lot is filled at the high school, and I'm not sure how many walkers and marchers, but it's probably 600-700, maybe even more. And when we line up the people in the high school, all of a sudden, about 8:30, 8:45, because the parade starts at 10, they just pour in, and that is a very hectic time.
Yeah, I bet it gets a little crazy.
It is, and I call it controlled chaos.
Yeah.
And it is, because people are, where do I go? How do I do it? Then wrong entrance. But once the parade gets started, and they're standing in line waiting to go out, and it can be hot there, but they just love going because they perform or they say hi if they're marchers with kids or families, whatever. And the people are wonderful. So we estimate sometimes that we'll get 20,000, 25,000 people.
Yeah.
And it's just an enjoyable event. And, you see people from over the years and they'll wave, hey, how are you? And, so we like it. We like to be part of it because you get to get out and you get to see what is something that we consider a valuable attribute for our town.
Well, I can see how, while you acknowledge there are many tremendous volunteer opportunities, the size and scope of the parade really does kind of dwarf the others. It's
does.
one day, it's a year of work, it's one day, but it involves tens of thousands of people.
It does.
Really?
Yeah.
And, part of it is that we have the carnival every year, and that's expanded, and now the Rotary has done those concerts, and there is a concert always the night before the parade when we have the fireworks, and that is really, there's a lot of people that attend that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good shout out to Rotary that
Yeah.
have taken
absolutely.
over the carnival and the concert. Well,
Yeah.
they've always done the concerts and then the fireworks.
Yeah.
It is.
So it's
those are
a
big
lot-
undertakings.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to
right,
interrupt
and
you,
it's
but
and
it is.
oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, and groups are not as big as they used to be, but this group still
I know.
does it all.
And, even with the Rotary, and they have their summer concert series, I think that's just starting in the next week or something. And that's a nice, comfortable
Almost
event.
every Wednesday night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It really is. And people come from different communities. And I like that because we have, people from Connecticut and towns around here, and they all come to these activities here. They have events in their towns too, but we are very fortunate to have people still involved with many things.
I appreciate that you say that because I've always thought the lines on the map are really just lines on the map. And Springfield's right over there and Enfield's right over here
Exactly.
and Hampton's on the we're all in the hood. So we're all together here, really we are.
Yeah, it is. You see a lot of, like you say, Massachusetts car, but a lot of Connecticut people come up too. And, there are other regional parades, but they're far away too. And well, some of them are smaller that are here, but this is just comfortable, and it's a pleasure to get a day like today, which we've had, and let people get out and really enjoy it.
So tell us your secret. How are you going to make July 4th as nice as right now?
A lot of wishful thinking.
I didn't know if I had to light a candle or you did a special
right.
Anything
dance.
that you wanted to do to help out would be good. But, I remember waking up in the morning and hearing thunder one parade. Uh-oh. But we still got our preliminary. We meet again the morning of the parade and go over final items. And
You meet on the morning of the parade,
the parade committee does. Yep. We do meet.
like at 6 a.m. at Friendly's?
About 7 o'clock. And we go over final orders, and we get coffee and donuts and go check things out. But that day we met under the canopy at the high school, and it started to rain a little, but it stopped. And I went up to the police station with one of the other parade marshals, and the police station checked into their radar and said there was a little burst, but it's leaving, and there's a section here that's heading your way, and by 9 o'clock it's going to be sunny. And sure enough, at 9, and people, did get to the parade, and we
sure.
had a parade that day. A couple times we've rushed to end the parade because it starts to rain at the end. But
March faster.
yeah, right. Yeah.
that's a good point.
Yeah. The band
Wow.
has to play faster too.
Carl, I think you live right, and that's how
Yeah.
the weather has come in your favor all these years.
We've been very fortunate, And,
I hope I just didn't jinx you. Knock on wood, yeah.
you start looking at the long range forecast,
Mm.
and as I said, we met last night and haven't got the 10-day forecast yet, but you're always looking for that big sunshiny thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We're hoping for that to happen again. And we have been very fortunate, because people do a lot of plans and they have activities afterwards at their homes too.
Is there anything new in the parade this year that you can think of?
The
I mean, we're all used to seeing, the Shriners and,
Yeah.
and the high school band, of course, which is terrific. And
Yeah, we have the same musical groups back. They get tugged at a lot of places, but I'm not sure we're getting our final lineup. But new people have come in. I had a person call me the other day about putting in a 1970 Oldsmobile convertible, and we'll get little new things, but nothing really. Of large groups that I can really think of. Most of them are returning people that we're familiar with.
well, that's always comforting when it's,
Yes.
when you have the returning
Yeah,
people.
and what's good about that is some of the groups, they know, like the drum and bugle corps, and they're dressed up in Revolutionary War outfits. And they know what time to come, and we try to put them over at the shade. We're in the shade, and we're very fortunate that they do go, but really not any major new groups. If we come, we invite them if they want to come.
Sure.
But it's something that we look forward to, and like we said, just being a part of this community is it's just a special feeling and a place to enjoy, and now get to watch your grandkids,
And to see those faces of those little kids, it just warms your heart.
Love it. Yeah,
They are
love
so
Yeah,
excited.
that's the best word to describe it. They love it and they cheer, and the participants wave to them, and there's kind of just a flow that goes all the way down the parade, even all the way down when we end down on Elm Street. There's still a big contingent. Four Corners is an area that's really loads up down there, and around the Rotary, but all along. And the other thing is that probably sometimes 2 days, but definitely one day before the parade, people stake their spots and they put out their chairs and tie them together.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who live over near Birchland, so
Oh yeah.
we're the we used to be at the beginning, now we're at the end.
Yes.
Maybe some of the neighbors are a little bitter about that, but they're
know,
getting over it.
That was a hard decision.
Yeah.
And it was based on, as I said, not having enough area to line everything up.
Right, yeah, with the
And-
new Birchland, which
And when they added on to the middle school, and made it Birchland Middle School, we were not allowed to park on the lawn before, because we used to drive our units on the lawns. The fire department would be to the right of the school, and we had enough room. But then we would use Hanwood Hill, Birchland Avenue. We'd go down and use St. Michael's Church Hall, and we had to bring all these units back down, and it just was really a difficult thing. But
Yeah.
it did eliminate the parade going down Hanwood Hill. And I still feel bad about it, because I know a couple people that lived there, and it was just a pleasure for them to see it. But so it gave people at the other end of the town an ability. And
exactly, yeah,
And you had a much more efficient staging area.
yeah,
Yes.
And
Oh,
that's
yeah.
nice. That,
yes, it is.
Because the morning has got to be, well, you said controlled chaos?
Yes.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
And
one of those words probably are really true. We'll see.
Like I said, we meet, and then it's the people start to come in. The float's about 8 because they're judged, and we want them to be ready and get acknowledgement when they go through the Rotary who won and what played. But all of a sudden, by about 10 of 9, the floodgates open, and it's backed up, and you're moving people, and it gets really hectic there. But we have people who have done it, and we are fortunate that, sometimes people will buy, well, I don't want this place or something, and so on. But we work it out and we explain it to them. But they're cooperative and they get going. And once they get going, it flows reasonably well all the way. And then I still see people at the end of Handward Hill watching the parade. And it's tough to see that. But you have to change when it's a necessity,
do.
too.
And change is not easy.
No, it isn't.
That's kind of the flip side of having a town with a long history. Sometimes you can't really leave the history behind, but
No,
we just do our very best.
Well, we do, and even with all these wonderful civic organizations and things, they have to change on what they can do and how they can do it. And I used to always not like change, but I've found in my life that change can be good once you get a juice to it, and that's important because our lives are always changing. So.
Oh, I think we're coming to words to the wise for wrap up.
Yeah.
Carl, so tell us, what message do you have for people in our town as they listen to this podcast? You have been a wonderful contributor and a great success in our town. What would you suggest for others how can they have that same feeling of community and contribution?
Well, there are a lot of, as I said, organizations, and you have many to choose from, whether it's a civic group or a church or a business association. And if you have the ability, and I know it's a little bit more difficult now with everything that's going on, but you can get your children involved in some of these activities, and then it fosters growth with parents, adults, and grandparents. But I also think that it allows people to choose, and we're being tugged at by all sides. But you can find activities that will suit your particular situation. And I would advise people to get involved in whatever it is. And, then they see their families grow and they see what that means like. And as we can tell that people now come back just to, remember and reminisce what it was like for them. And that kind of is a foundation for a community. To be involved and, be active, do what you can do, supportive, and then enjoy events too, because that means a lot to the people who put them on. So
Right, it would be a sad parade if there was no one on the sidewalk cheering.
I know, it'd be a lot of candy too.
Yay.
Anyway, so I would think that just be involved, enjoy the community. We all have our little bumps in the road and so on, but luckily we have a community that moves forward. And I just so very pleased to have settled here, and I've enjoyed it all these years too.
It was good for you. It's great for us. So thank you, Carl.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming in. Now, that was really kind of what Carl has been saying has really been a running theme that we've been talking about at all these podcasts, is that it's great for people to be involved, and there are so many opportunities out there for people to be involved.
Well, to have this too for the community is, like you say, you can see what's going on, and you'll see little blurbs and so on when there's certain activities, and I know there's things coming up this weekend, and you read about that, and there's so many choices you can make. Take a break during a busy day or a weekend and, go to visit one of these places or an activity, and you'll find it's well worth it. But I do want to thank you, too, for having me and having other people who present their views on the community. And I probably have rambled off the main road here a couple times, but we'll go through the Rotary that way, too.
Shoot the Rotary. I love it when I learn new things.
Let's not think about it. Well, anyway, thank you so much, Carl, for being here. And thank you, Mary, for hosting the show today. That wraps up another episode of Stories from the View. We'd like to thank Carl Ohlin, for
Thank
being
you
here
as
today. The Stories from the View podcast is available on the LCAT 01028 channel on YouTube. If you have a story that you'd like to share on the program, contact Pleasant View Senior Center Director Aaron Kobler by stopping by the Senior Center, or you can call Aaron at 413-525-5436, extension 1401. Or you can send her an email as well, aaron.kobler@eastlongmeadowma.gov. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time at Stories from the View.